Are we good?
Yep.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wear PJs at Work Day today.
Hello! Ow! Ow. I'm good. I'm good. No worries.
Exactly as planned.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, shoot. I forgot you guys can't probably hear me because I have the microphone way over here. If you haven't, and the reason the microphone's over there today is because we are doing a traditional live stream. I don't know how well you can see what we got going on here, but we have the notebook set up. And for some reason, this is one of the more requested tutorials. And I have no problem doing traditional drawing tutorial live streams if you guys want them. So this is kind of enjoyable for me. I sometimes admittedly prefer working traditional over digital, especially lately. So I think this one will be a good one. All right. So while people are joining in, as always, Joe is going to do shout outs from where you guys are watching from. And we didn't really think of a question for today.
Hold on. I'm going to go
I'm
grab
sure
my
we'll think of one, though. So, okay, everyone, if you want to put where you're watching from, and then I'm going to finish up the marketing, and then we will start the live stream.
Ugh.
So do you want to start it off, Joe?
Yeah, sorry. I was grabbing my sketchbook. Okay. We'll go to the bottom and then scroll our way to the top. Matt from NYC. Hello, Matt. Nikki Lower from Idaho. Hello. Hello from France. Smiley face heart. Stella. Stella. Kate Q. Hello from Poland. Welcome back, Kate. I am not. Hello from the Unitary Parliamentary Constitutional Monarchy of Sweden.
Wow.
Man. That seems very serious.
Yeah, right?
I'm in a very serious mood today. Abra from Toronto. Welcome back, Abra. Or Abrar. Tony Jeffers from Indiana. Welcome back. Selena. I'm going to stop saying welcome back because I feel like everyone usually is here. Like they just keep coming back, which we appreciate. Thank you, everybody. Michael Hunson from England. Hello, Chio. I'm loving the onesies. Wish I had mine at hand. These aren't onesies. They're kirigumis. There's a difference. Actually, I need to. I can't see. I need to.
I want to say, what's the difference? We consider ourselves hipsterly cultured.
We are adults wearing kirigumis.
Yes.
I'm eventually going to take this thing off because it's like really warm.
I know my head was already like bursting with heat, and I'm like, oh, okay, hood's coming down.
Yeah.
Sorry, Totoro.
I'm having a terrible hair day, so my hood is not coming down until I turn off my camera. Mizidora says, hi, everyone. Sarah from Spain. Kanesha from Canada. Jan Donovan from North Carolina. Hello, Jay. Fabian from Belgium. Suna from Iceland. Oh, man, they just pop up from everywhere. Like, there's
that's awesome.
It's very cool. Monomu Art from Slovakia. Just Daiki from New Caledonia. Jared Nolly from Switzerland. And Horatio from Mexico, who messaged us on DeviantArt. I think it was DeviantArt the other day, or is it? Yeah, I think it was me on DeviantArt, and was like, "Thank you for doing the streams. Thank you for coming. We love you guys. So keep coming back."
Oh, I'm done.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna start getting rid of some of these that I said hello to, and then you can do your thing.
All right. Everyone, officially welcome to the CG Cookie Wednesday live stream. We do these every Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Central Time, and that's -5 GMT if you're watching outside of the States. And usually we post the topic about an hour and a half beforehand on all of our social media pages. And Before we begin, oh, and also I should say, if you have questions besides what we're working on, even if they're not specifically relevant to what I'm working on, you feel free to ask them. We enjoy all types of questions, even the ridiculous ones. And before I get into drawing, I was at Wizard World Chicago this weekend exhibiting, and I just want to show you guys the loot I got really quick so that we can get into the stream. The first one was I met an artist named Jeremy Bastian. He created this book called Cursed Pirate Girl, and I was literally floored looking through this. Let me show you one of the pages from the book, and I think you'll understand why. So his book, he does it all with a brush pen, and he stipples and he does the cross hatching on every single page, and every page is incredibly intricate and detailed. And the latest chapter took him 3 years to create, which is insane. And he is an equally awesome person to talk to. He's really nice. He gave me some advice about Filigree and how to work that into my pieces more, so that was awesome. And I got this print of his, and it just once again showcases the display of excellence that he does on his work. I met one of the watchers from CG Cookie. His name is Matt Kennan, and he recognized me on the street, which was the first time ever, which was really weird. But then I went to his booth and I talked to him for a while, and he ended up giving me this at the end of the weekend, and he signed it, and it was just an awesome thing meeting a fan who started watching 3 years ago and has kind of turned his art career from doing a job that he didn't particularly like as much and then making art his full-time focus. And I give him a lot of credit. I hope he stays on that path and continues to pursue that career to eventually get rid of the old job. And lastly, I met Gawky, which I don't know how many of you guys know her work, but I have been following Gawky for a long time because Feverworm is one of my favorite artists ever, and especially with her color work. And Gawky got compared to her a lot. And I think for the reasons of the working with color and how they work with value, but it was great meeting her. She's very, very nice. And I got to talk to her for a little bit, and I think that was the big things with Wizard World. So it was a great weekend overall. And if you ever want to meet artists, go to a convention. It's like one of the easiest way to meet them in person. And they're in a weird way, they're stuck behind the booth, so they're forced to give you their attention. So if you want to ask them some questions, it's not really like they can go anywhere. But don't annoy them, because I've been on the other side of the booth as well. All right. The other two things in the art community that's kind of a big deal is Loesch, which is one of the biggest digital artists out there today. She released a Kickstarter for her art book, and you guys should go check it out. If you just type in LOISH on Kickstarter, you'll be able to find her book. It's already been funded. It was launched yesterday, and it's already crazily exceeded the amount that she asked for. And the other thing is, if you guys know Piper from DeviantArt, or mainly through DeviantArt, Piper, I don't want to butcher her last name, I think it's Thibodeau. She just passed her 1,000 daily sketch challenge that she's been doing, where it's like a daily sketch every day, and she's been so on top of it that she finally hit the 1,000 mark, and she's still going. She's not stopping. So that was a big congrats to her, as she's one of the author tutorials on CG Cookie. She did a tutorial on creating a Cerberus pug. All right, so now we're ready to switch over. Those are most of the announcements. And then the last things with CG Cookie is we have a contest going on right now, and that's the theme of what I'll be drawing today. It's post-apocalyptic character. So if you guys have any suggestions while I'm drawing and you want to throw them at me, and maybe we'll add them to the character. And the other thing is, if you can't see behind me, we've been diving into this color course, and if you guys could see my desk right now, it's a mess of color and paint and ink and acrylics. And I can't tell you more honestly how easy it is to learn more about color by experimenting. And not just experimenting digitally, but experimenting traditionally as well. There's a lot that I've been learning, and I feel like I kind of throw my confusion at Joe all the time on not understanding something and then having it click and then having it something else not work or click in my mind. So it's a constant battle back and forth with color, but the more that you try to engage color and you try to understand it, the better. And I just please recommend experimenting as much as you can. And when you get frustrated, push past it. And if you have questions, make sure you answer them. All right. So I'm going to move this over here because we are sketching traditionally today. Let me switch to my second camera. And I'll have to edit it just a bit.
Two things really fast. First thing about the color course that you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's my desk. You see all this nonsense?
Oh.
All right.
What I was gonna say was, I think everyone's gonna really, really love this course. I'm not talking it up for hype, but I think looking at color things online, like on YouTube, it's so scattered, and you're like, well, what does this mean, and where does this mean, and there's no direction at all. And with this course, I think it'll be a really good, like, these are the things in order that you need to know what you need to know about color. So I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm really hoping that everybody else is as well. And then the second thing was, Gio says, hi again from Belgium. I'm on holiday with my parents. There's no internet in our hotel. I've driven around in my car until I found a Wi-Fi connection. What? And now I'm parked somewhere, hoping my battery won't die on me. Have a nice stream.
Digital, that's incredible. And actually, I need to message you later on Etsy for your print that you ordered. Okay. So how well did it autofocus?
It's autofocusing every once in a while. But it's I mean, I can see what's going on.
Oh, you know what? It's upside down. Hold on. Yeah. Sorry. For any of those that get motion sickness.
Everyone's like,
yeah, right. Let me position. So for those of you who don't know, I sometimes try to stay away from doing these traditional ones because I have a camera that I got that does autofocus, and it's very annoying. So like if my hands get really close, it's nice, but then when I'm drawing, it goes in and out constantly with the zoom. So eventually I'm gonna go get a nicer camera to do these streams and do some tutorials with.
I might need to take a look at it.
You can. Challenge accepted.
I'll do some IT work, and if not, if we really need it for a desperate time, we can always just switch cameras.
If you can fix it, that'd be awesome. Okay, so the one of the things I wanted to talk about in the stream, rather than just doing just me sketching, is the difference between what is a sketch or like a doodle versus something that would be considered a render. So over the weekend, I did this, which is more considered a sketch. And essentially, it's more like the difference between a concept artist and an illustrator. Concept artist, you're trying to get the concept across, and you're working fast. You're not worrying about details. And that's, in my opinion, what sketching is. So if I have an idea in my head, I'm sketching it out, and I'm not worrying about the shading, the lighting, definitely not any color. But then when I do something more like a render, let's see, do I have anything around me right now? Sure, the one time I don't have sketches around me. Hold on. All right, here's a few. All right, so then for like rendering, I'm really moving slow. I'm going with the intention of creating a render. So I'm looking at values, and it's something that's very important. I'm looking at values and the contrast and how they work with each other. So an area that's more light, if I place an area that's more shaded or dark next to it, obviously there's gonna be contrast, and that builds interest. So then you as the artist have to pick and choose where you want the eye to be directed throughout your piece. The other thing that I wanted to mention was size. Because with something like this, I actually found it really difficult to draw because it's working on such a small scale that when I go in for those really tiny details, even with the pencils that I have, which are pretty small lead, it still is kind of difficult to get into those little pockets of detail that I want to, and that I really want to kind of render out more. So then something like this, which is actually the post-apocalyptic contest banner right now, I work on a full page, and it becomes a lot easier to add in like the details on the ear than if, let's say, this mermaid had an ear. It'd be a lot more difficult to get in there and do the same impression of detail than it is on an ear that's more zoomed in essentially. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to start out with a sketch of this character that we're going to create today. And then near like the second half, actually probably the first half hour, I'll do more of a sketch, and then the last hour, or whatever time we have left, I'll do more of a render of different areas on the character. And the idea for what we're going today, at least for what I would want to do, is something with the post-apocalyptic theme, since it's kind of for the contest and we're doing some subliminal advertising for it. And I wanted to do a badass little girl. So that's our theme. So if you guys have any ideas on something you might want to see on the character and throw it on, or maybe how to render it out, feel free to put it in the comment section and Joe will kind of push it forward.
The camera's like, it's auto-focusing and it's
right.
It's constantly changing.
Right. We can move more up. I'll try to keep my hands as down as possible. And the other thing is I got to keep them out of the way, which might prove to be a challenge as well.
Yeah.
Or maybe, do you think it would be better if I just zoomed really close?
Yeah, zoom really close, because then we can actually see the detail, what's going on.
Yeah, maybe I'll just move the paper, and then let me know if it gets really out of focusy.
No, that's pretty darn good.
Okay.
Also, that's a pretty sweet 0.2 pencil you got.
My 0.7 Bic mechanical pencil.
Oh, no, I was talking about the one you showed earlier.
So actually, we should put a link in the description. For those of you who don't know, I always talk about my 0.3 pencil and how, and if you don't know what that is, it's the size of the lead. So it's 0.3 millimeters, and it's really, really small. So then when compared to the 0.7, let me see if it focuses. There we go. So you can see how it's literally less than half the size. Well, as a present, Joe found a size even smaller that he bought, and he got me this point. Let me see, where does it say it? Right there. So this is a 0.2 mechanical pencil. So while the yellow one, and it probably reads backwards, doesn't it? That's okay. You can see the numbers. So the yellow one is 0.3 and the white one's 0.2. And this one is even smaller than the 0.3 pencil, which is insane. So whenever I want to do like really, really tiny details, I kind of switch to the white one. But starting off, when I do sketching, I do this Bic 0.7, just any standard mechanical pencil I usually stick with. But yeah, Joe found that awesome little treasure.
Yeah, that'll definitely go up in the description.
Yeah, so if you guys want to practice working with the super, super fine detail mechanical pencil, we will put the link in the description.
Okay. We have tons of questions.
Okay.
First question. Hello?
Hello. Oh, that was an easy one. Whew.
Yeah, I know. Cindy Kruger asks, how would you describe filigree?
So filigree, if I wanted to pretend like I was all aristocratic, I would say it's an ornate decadent, mainly used in Renaissance painting frames. But essentially, it's the pattern that looks like it has the perfect ratio curve, and then it has like little leaves and... Oh, this is the worst quick sketch of filigree I've ever done. It's just a little touch of decadence onto your pieces. If you think of like a giant gold frame that would be at like a museum, it probably has a lot of filigree pattern throughout the actual edge. So that would be filigree. Or if you just Google it, that's filigree. And it's become one of my favorite words to say over and over. And the person I was sharing the booth with over the weekend, I taught him about what filigree is, and now he seemed pretty enamored with it as well. I love filigree. I love adding it in my pieces.
Next question is from Jay Donovan saying, is color being added to the flow or the library? And for that, the color course will be its own flow. So how many lessons is it going to be?
You know what? Let me grab the board. So I keep changing and rechanging it. I'll zoom out for a second again. So this is our whiteboard. So right now we have 10 tutorials lined up, and we currently have like the half of them already recorded, and now we're just doing kind of the editing, and the other half we're finishing this week and the beginning of next week. So you should expect to see it on, and usually I don't give dates, but actually I've talked with Wes, who is the owner of CG Cookie, and we've kind of set in a date of September 7th. So if color is something that really interests you and you want to learn more about it, We tried to give the most comprehensive understanding color course possible, and I'm pretty proud of it, so I hope you guys enjoy it. And that will be released on September 7th.
Beatrice DT asks, how do you properly render / draw hair with pencil? And I figured you'll just kind of approach that later on, right?
Yes, but then I need you guys to realize, though, like when I draw hair, it's not 100% the proper way, but I'll explain the difference when we get to the hair. I kind of want her to have like a little snarl to her. She's gonna be like a tough little chick here.
She's got a bad attitude.
Maybe she was a victim of circumstance, Joe.
What is that little thing that's on the screen?
What?
There's like a little tiny like thing that fell on. That was weird. Jill asks, funny question. Which one of you two isn't wearing pants under their onesie?
I guess you'll never know.
I was thinking about it. I was like, should I wear pants? I was like, yeah.
I never do. It was like the one time I did because it was like a last minute, oh, it's PJ day. Right? We kind of made that up, but I just put it over my pants and now I'm getting kind of warm.
Yeah, Tim usually never wears pants during.
Yeah, even though that's why you only see me waist up. I never wear pants. Should I give her like a coif going backwards, or should I? Or I'll let you guys decide. Should I do hair that's like parting toward the side like this, or should I kind of push it all together in a group behind her? I could go either way on that decision. And also, by the end of this, I really want to know if you guys have any kind of baller names that we could name her.
Oh man, we have so many good questions. Okay, well, this one. Okay, Manuel asks, is it wrong to paint over photos to improve my line skill?
I feel like I have a little bit of mixed feelings about that, just because I think you could push yourself to learn it without having to draw over photos. I think if the intention is purely to learn, then that's good. I just want you to challenge yourself and try doing it without the photo. And then maybe put the photo on a separate layer where you can turn it on and off to see how accurate or how close those lines were. But yeah, for the most part, I would say try to stay away from drawing over photos.
I've actually been doing this lately where when I'm studying these anime heads and stuff, like I need to break down how they're doing like proportions and stuff. So what I'll do is I'll take the book, I'll take a lined piece of paper and I'll trace it over it and I'll be okay, this makes sense. The problem with that is that doesn't give me any art ability. Okay.
Exactly.
That gives me no art ability. The reason why I'm doing it though is later on I can then redraw that in my sketchbook. So that way I know the proportions of the face. I'm just drawing a circle and like 4 lines to represent how they're doing those proportions. That's what I'm taking from it. I'm not just drawing over it to get to draw it, you know? And so what that's doing is that's actually helping me recognize how the artist does proportions. So that's, if you're doing that with photos, then that's a good way of going about studying from them. But just to paint over it, that really isn't going to help you.
I caught myself. I was about to render out. So if you ever see me doing like, then if I like slow down and I start doing this, that's me rendering. And I'm trying to avoid that. So right now I'm still trying to keep it loose. And I feel like I fall into that trap a lot of rendering too soon. So I'm going to do my best to stay focused on the concept right now.
Ooh, here's a good question from Nikki Lower. It says, or it's loading. Hold on. There we go. It says, question on priorities. I really enjoy drawing a lot, but my first love is writing. I want to be a novelist, but I also want to be a dang good artist. My problem is if I sit down to really work on one, it means I'm neglecting the other. Help? Question mark.
That's true. I mean, it's one of those, oops, you can't see what I'm drawing. It's one of those things where you have to set a priority on what's more important to you. And that's a tough question. Like even for me, when I'm working on my own personal project, I feel like I do have to outsource and get a writer to help me with it, because I can't, as much as I would love to really do both, I feel like to be realistic, sometimes you need to ask for help. And in your case, I think having that balancing act, you can do it, but just know you really have to be committed to both. So stay passionate about both. And man, I wish you the best of luck, because I think it's easier to really master and hone in on one skill. And it's like the idea of focusing in. And I know me and Joe talk about this a lot. It's the, what's that saying? Oh, wait, I think I know it now. It's the jack of all trades, a master of none. And sometimes I feel like when people try to do too much, they end up not doing anything at all. But when I talk to the people that try to do one thing, like it always seems, not always, because you can still fail, but it usually seems to work out better than someone that has like this crazy big project. When someone's like, yeah, I'm just gonna do a study every 10 days, or for 10 days, I'm gonna do a study every day. And like, it's an easy, manageable project to do. Just know that you don't have to do your big project all at once. Maybe do it in small steps, and that'll be easier for you to complete it then.
Yeah, and with drawing and writing, they're both very creative outlets, and I don't think you should be drawing for 7 to 8 hours a day. I'm coming to realize that if I do that straight, my hand starts to hurt at the end of the day, because I've been doing it for the past like 2 years. But I'm not saying don't draw a lot, because you should. Just over everything in moderation, I guess, goes with that. But a lot of time too, another 3 to 4 hours can be spent writing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm kind of doing right now with 3D work. I've never touched 3D before, and I'm learning a lot, but I usually spend 3 to 4 hours a night learning Blender. But the 3 to 4 hours before that, I'm drawing. So I guess schedule yourself properly. But like Tim said, don't be like, I'm gonna write fantasy sci-fi novel, or I'm gonna write a fantasy novel, and I'm gonna write a sci-fi novel, and I'm gonna write a horror novel, and I'm gonna do all these things with writing, and then get lost in there. It's the same thing with drawing. It's like, okay, well, I want to be an environmental artist, I want to be a concept artist, but I also want to be an illustrator for books. And you can do that, but it's going to take a long time. So like Tim said, do little projects to help you manage your time easier.
Yeah, because I almost feel like we're discouraging, but it's not discouraging. It's being realistic about like, set your priorities. So first, if you want to do all those things, okay, what do you want to do first? If you want to do a kid's book, then really focus and spend all your time on making the best kids book that you possibly can, and try not to have so many things on the back burner, so that it becomes like your priority to finish the kids book first. And then you can focus, once you finish that, then you can move on to your next idea.
Yeah.
All right, she needs some cool accessories. Let me see here. What do I... Like immediately I'm like, oh, feathers.
Earrings? Question mark? Would she wear?
Yeah, let's give her some weird earrings.
Give her like 50 cartilage piercings. Or maybe blow off one of her ears.
No.
An eye patch? How original. Or a bandage?
Yeah, should I just put a scar there too?
Yeah. Over one of her eyes.
Oh, you know what? I could give her the Knox scar on the nose. I've always liked that scar.
Yeah. I'm a big what's like actual scars, like how scars would form. Like, have you ever seen a drawing where the scar forms on someone's head and you're like, how did that happen? You know?
How did that happen?
Whereas like usually you get a scar on your eyebrow or your nose or your chin, because those are the most protruded out features, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas it wouldn't make sense to have necessarily a scar, you know, under the eye or something like that, or when the when the scar goes from the top of the head to like straight through, but they've got like a scar inside their eyelid.
Oh yeah.
You're like,
Like, oh yeah, that's makes sense.
I am not says I'm starting to have a problem where I get bored with my more advanced pieces about halfway through, and I want to move on to the next thing. I do finish them eventually, but is there any way to keep the hype up for 20+ hour pieces? I mean, what do?
Oh man. That's really tough. Even with a lot of the pieces I try to finish, I feel like by the end, I just want it to be done. And it's one of the worst feelings because you almost lose the excitement of being done with it. And it just becomes more of a pain. Like it's a struggle just to finish something that you were really excited to start. So whenever you have that notion of, I just want to get it done and you don't even care anymore about how it looks, you're so focused and your intent is just finishing it, then I would honestly put it to the side. I don't think your mindset is ready to finish it. And trust me, just from personal experience, I've had to do that a lot. And even though you really want to share with everyone what you've done, it's better to be 100% proud of what you did before you share it, rather than just share it just to get it out of the way. And it has definitely helped me be okay with putting like a vast amount of hours into a piece and then being like, well, I still don't like the way that it's looking in certain areas. I can come back to it later, and I know that maybe I'll have a fresh pair of eyes and maybe something else will pop out to me that I could do to it. So just know that it's very, very normal to lose excitement on a piece.
This one has a lot of upvotes. It's from Okra. It says, how do you portray that an object or character is more squishy or doesn't have a permanently defined shape, such as a beanbag chair, or the more fatty areas of a human, such as the stomach, thighs, breast, when poked, sat on, or external force put on it?
Okay. Let's see here. I think the beanbag's the easiest way to explain this. So let's say that this was our beanbag. So then if there was some kind of an indentation to imply that there was a groove because there was weight that was pushed on it, actually, maybe I don't like that. So the way that I would shade this, and you would think, oh, you just shade down the middle because that's where the shadow is. And this isn't the way that I like to do it. And I kind of reinforce this all the time where I do contrast shading to do this. So I'll leave this area here almost untouched with the pencil stroking, but then on this side, to give it that value or that perception of depth, I'll try to darken it. And then to complement that, I'll shade this side. Because then this also implies that the light source is coming from straight forward, and that's why this is more in shadow, but then it has like a bump here where this would receive light, but this area would not. So then if you wanted to imagine that this was skin, let's extend out the beanbag here. Let's say someone, for whatever reason, was pushing on a more fatty area of a person. Oh my gosh, that is a hand. That is not anything weird. Oh my gosh, hold on. I'll have the thumb like extended for no reason.
I was actually going to be like, it's a butt. And then you started saying that. I was like, never mind.
So then if this was the skin, the other thing is, since it would be pushed in a bit, we wouldn't see the entire finger because some of it would be covered by the skin that's folding under. And this. So a lot of it is dealing with thinking about the materials and how they would bend and move. So like this crevice is probably too deep on this side, so I'm going to erase it a bit here. Like that. So then it would give the indentation that's pushing in, creating that value. And that looks so weird. I'm erasing that. Moving back to my little Chica here. I want to give her goggles, but I'm like, Tim, come on. Can we think a little more deeper than surface level post-apocalyptic? What would be awesome to put on her head? Oh, I'll have to think about this for a second. I'll go back to my feathers.
But like a headband, like, but it's like made of something crazy.
Oh, okay. Yep. Good idea.
I'm trying to think of what object would she, maybe like, like TV cables or something. Like, what would you use as a headband? Horatio Gomez asks, do you have different sketchbooks to work with or just one? And how many sketchbooks have you ever filled out / completed?
Oddly enough, I've actually never filled out a sketchbook. This is one of the first. I have like, I don't know how well you can see this, but there's like 4 more pages. And then this will actually be the first sketchbook I've ever finished. I have a really bad habit of finishing things when it comes to like food, even like cereal. I hate eating the last like 1/5 of it. So I just leave it in the box and I'll just buy a new box. I don't know why. So even with sketchbooks, I don't know if it's like, do I get bored with them or am I scared of losing it? So then I buy a new one. I don't know. I have always had kind of that problem. So this will be the first one I've finished. What was the first part of that problem? Oh, do I have different sketchbooks to work with? Yes. This is a standard one, but I also have a smaller one and then an even smaller one. So I have different sizes, and it kind of depends on what I'm feeling I want to work on that day. And if I want it to be something bigger, like even this could have been done on a smaller sketchbook because I knew I was going to work a little more tight and confined in an area. But I think it's also good to have different paper weights. The heavier is usually the one I would recommend more, but I have known artists that actually prefer the thinner paper weights. So that kind of depends on what you prefer to work with.
I'd also like to thank Horatio for making me understand why we have so many cereal boxes on our show.
Yes, we have a lot of cereal over there because
I'm gonna go look at all those, and they're gonna be like empty. Everything. What? She asks, what artist would make you fangirl until your head explodes?
I think I really want to meet Feverworm. That's been one of the artists that I've never met, and she just started doing cons recently, as far as to the best of my knowledge. So I would love to meet her. But Alan Williams, I've met a few times, and he's been one of my biggest influences in just switching back over to traditional. So the first time I met him, I remember being almost at a loss of words because it was really hard talking to him when I was just kind of in awe of who he was, what he did, and how humble he's remained and how grounded. And it kind of reminds me that in our art community, it doesn't matter how big you become in the art community, because to the rest of the world, like, no one knows them. So it's cool because no matter how big you get, you won't really be recognized by the average person. But then by the art community, that's what it matters to. And for him to stay so humble, even talking to, at the time I was such a young artist that I didn't really have anything impressive to show him, but he treated me like I was very important, and any question I had, he gave full thought out answers to. And it was just one of those things where it's like, I aspire to be that someday. Someone that not only really like honed in their craft, but stayed humble and grounded throughout.
He was a really cool dude. Like, I remember being at his booth and not really knowing who he was. And then like we just like stood there and like talked to him and like wanted to know more about like how he did his process and stuff. And then that one woman came up and was just like kind of in his face, you know, but the way that he reacted was so awesome. Like, he was so calm, very collected. He's like, you know, like, my wife takes care of like commission stuff like that, and then like kind of set her on her way. And it was just so like, you're awesome, you know, like, you're so humble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you guys don't know who he is, go to his Facebook page, like him, because he is such an awesome guy.
Yeah, definitely I think he could be my favorite traditional, at least with pencil art.
And if you like the movie Pacific Rim, he did concept work for them. And he
Or even if you didn't think Pacific Rim was that great.
Or if you like Pan's Labyrinth.
There we go.
There you go. Any Guillermo del Toro movie, he does a lot of concept work for. Okay, next question. Nail Burton says, I have real troubles placing legs in my characters. They always end up in rather awkward looking poses. Any tips so they don't look like they have broken legs?
I would start them at the waist. So that'd be my first advice for where to place them. But in terms of when you're drawing, I think I see a lot of people, and I'm going to try to say this without it becoming really weird, is, okay, if this was the waist area of a character, so like that's underwear, here's the belly button. Usually, at least with younger artists, it seems like the legs are like could almost be attached to each other. Like here, they're like constantly stuck on each other, which is very strange. And it's gonna sound a little vulgar, but I had a teacher that told me you got to give some breathing room for the under area. So always separate your legs out or push them out and give some breathing room to your junk. And that was one of the biggest things that I learned, at least doing anatomy drawing, was how to separate the legs here. And then you focus on like, oh, okay, the curves, blah, blah, blah. But this is something that I thought was a big deal. The other thing is keeping them in relative proportion to the entire character. So like if this was our standing pose here, here's our guy. So usually the idea is, and if this is the waist area, so typically, or at least the way that I generally learned, is the bottom half of the character should be about equal relation to the top half. And some people like to have their legs a little longer than so they might even do like the bottom of the chin to the waist should be in relative proportion to the bottom of the waist to the feet. It's the easiest way to learn it is to kind of figure out, well, one, use reference, and life drawing is like a lifesaver in terms of better understanding how you draw anatomy and proportions. And everyone's body is a little different. So there's not like one true proportion that I could tell you. So instead, you have to do studies, and over time, you'll kind of figure out what anatomy and what proportions you like. So when I draw, I usually draw longer legs. Actually, maybe I have a sketch that already. Okay, so for this, on the sketch, I draw them usually very thin, but very long legs and long arms and long torso. So it still fits a general proportion because it's in proportion to itself. So sometimes if you had like a head that was too big, and then we actually have a friend that draws their heads a little too big on their pieces, and it's because it's in relation to the body that they put it on. So if you're having troubles with your legs for proportions, that would be my biggest advice, is make it in proportion to itself. But the second part of that question was, any tips so they don't look like broken legs? Don't just draw them perfectly straight. Remember that the bones underneath of it definitely give some way to the way a leg looks. And I remember even doing the leg tip back in the day. The outside of the leg usually has more of a curve to it, while the inside has like a triple bump. And it's kind of strange, but the knee is actually more at a slant. And then it's all because of the way the muscle lies underneath of this. And this goes like this. And then the calf usually on the inside of the leg is more pronounced than on the outside, just because of the way the leg is shaped. So something to keep in mind. So keep your legs in more accuracy with the underlying anatomy. Okay, really quick, I'm gonna do some small renders on the face here. So I'm gonna really zoom in. Oop. Yeah, really up close and personal. And I'm gonna render out some of the areas. This might be a little strange because I can't see my drawing 100%. So I'm gonna kind of use the screen as my second pair of eyes here as I continue to answer questions for you guys.
Matt asks, I noticed that you're not using guidelines in your drawings. When do you get to the point where you don't need to use guidelines? If I try not to use guidelines, my work looks like looks like some that would draw with my left, something I would draw with my left hand.
Usually I do still start. I actually don't even remember what I started with this one. No, I didn't start with the circle. Usually I do start with the circle and then I'll build the chin off of that. But normally I don't do like the guidelines and like draw them because I've already almost memorized it where when I'm drawing it, I see it on the paper. So I don't need to physically draw it. The one thing that usually helps me and something I kind of picked up on my own was when I draw heads, rather than doing the planes of the face, I usually draw where the skull, the pockets where the eyes would be placed. What are those called? Why am I getting a blank? The sockets, eye sockets. I usually draw those in, and I draw them pretty heavy because then it gives me an idea of where the nose would be placed and then the mouth. But then when I go back, I usually take my eraser and I just erase the bottom half of the socket, and I almost created a inset for where the eyes can be placed in. So that's something that kind of helped me draw eyes or draw heads where I don't need to draw all the planes out. But like I said, it really does vary from person to person, and there is no one right way. And I didn't like just have one day where I was like, I'm not going to draw the planes of the face. I think it happened organically, which is how it should happen. It's not being forced.
Yeah, you want to know what's weird? after drawing anime heads for the past like month, so because I'm trying to figure out artist styles. Okay, so you know your heads, how you draw that circle?
Yeah.
Draw a circle for me on the side. All right. Okay, the bottom of the circle is the mouth for some anime heads.
Oh.
So then they draw the chin. Like,
so that would be the mouth.
Yeah. It, like that like blew my mind, and because I was trying to do heads in perspective, and I was like, oh, the bottom of the circle, when I turn that in space, is the mouth, and that's why my stuff looked so weird from front view, 3/4 view, and then side view. Because my side view, I was doing it where the bottom of the head, where the mouth was like way lower.
Yeah,
it was elongated. And I was like, what's going on? So, tips for new artists, really pay attention to what's going on and what you're doing, and what other artists are doing. Break down their process.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge help.
CC asks, speaking of left hands, I'm left-handed. How do I keep my hand from smudging everything and ruining it?
Usually, I don't know how well you can see this. So usually that, hold on, because I actually
I was like, what are we looking at right now?
Okay, so on my pinky, that's where it's always on the paper when I'm drawing. I've actually flattened it out enough where now there's no wrinkle on it, and it's become like my smear technique. Look how shiny that is. It's like a weird, it looks so strange. But that's the only part of my hand that ever smudges the paper. So whenever I see that gets a little gray, I usually take my other hand, which is usually a bit oily, and then I just wipe it clean. And that's how it's kind of gross, but that's how I keep all my drawings.
You've built clean. A callus on your pinky?
Yeah.
For drawing?
I wish you guys could see this better, because it doesn't hurt, but it looks like it's in like a massive amount of pain.
It's artist evolutionary body right there. Children will have those built in. They'll be like, why are my pinkies so weird?
I'll be like, you've earned that, kid. Oh no, I should say you've got to earn that.
I think something that would also help with that left-handed thing is work right to, is it right to left if you're left-handed?
Oh yeah, the actual tips, yeah. So in this drawing, I should work on this side and work this way, so that I don't, if I worked this way up, I would be smudging upwards. And if it's a really big problem, I've actually used like a Kleenex, and I'll set my hand on it or another piece of paper.
Yeah, that's how inkers have to work. They have to work from, if they're right-handed, they have to work left to right to bottom, from top to bottom. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they'll smear the ink. Cindy Kruger asks, most everyone is drawing while they watch these streams, right?
I hope so. I know that when I watch live streams, I keep it on a separate monitor so that I can pay attention to what they're saying, but I can also work. And then if I ever want to like look at something specific that they're doing, I would look up, and then yeah, that's how I usually watch live streams, at least.
Mizadora asks, your sketches are so detailed and beautifully thought out. So I want to know, do you use reference or is it just your visual library?
Both. I actually just did an article with Kent recently on using reference. So right now, let me show you guys what my reference is. And I probably should have told you before I even started. One of the biggest artists that I follow when it comes to like this stuff is an artist named Brosa. And I'll spell it on the side here. Make sure I do it with this pencil. So he's another artist I would recommend checking out. He just has a really great, crazy, oh, it's backwards, isn't it?
No, it's forwards.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, on my screen, it's backwards. Anyways, he does this kind of stuff. I have no idea how well this will show. But it's really, like, there's a lot of kids and it's post-apocalyptic. I'm sorry if I'm giving you guys, like, this weird headache. So yeah, I usually pull up a reference board when I do my drawings, and then I just kind of go for it. So like this one, I had like 5 minutes before the stream because I was working on the editing the color course, and then I was like, oh, I gotta get reference. And I always try to use reference because you never know how that can impact and deepen your drawing. So like sometimes, like right now when I'm doing the face, I'm definitely not using reference because I feel like I've drawn this type of face so many times before that I can just kind of autopilot it. But then for details or like cool things and fashion that I want to add, I try to use reference. Kind of want to give her war paint of some kind. Just got to figure out what I want to do.
Ooh, this is a good question. But it's a bit controversial. Are you ready?
Oh boy. Hit me with your best shot.
It's from Gio. It says, recently I got feedback that I only try to draw people who are considered to be beautiful by society, and it's try. I haven't drawn that many people on the heavy side. Do you think this is a problem? Do you think you do this as well? Oh yeah, okay. So I get asked this a lot too. And actually this started way before I even did any of this. In high school, my art teacher yelled at me because she said I only drew beautiful young women. And that I didn't really understand, or I didn't grasp the idea of what true beauty was. So then as my next assignment, she told me to draw something, someone that would be considered beauty from within. So someone that might not be perceived as beautiful on the outside. And my art teacher she's an older lady, and she had like long gray, frail gray hair. And I decided to draw her because I thought she was like the greatest shit ever, or the greatest stuff ever. But I remember when I was drawing her and I would look around her eye sockets and the wrinkles, and there were so much more that I had to work with, and it became so much more fun that I became so intrigued by drawing older people. And then from that point forward, I drew a lot of older people, or people that had interesting faces or strangely shaped heads. And I found that for me, beauty wasn't in the perceived beauty of it, but rather in the different like brush strokes or the drawing lines, or even like with this, I hope that like the way that I'm shading the nose is perceived as beautiful. I mean, if the subject matter is beautiful, I guess it's a compliment to the way you're drawing. But for what you're doing, I would say don't change what you want to draw because someone else doesn't like it. You should always draw what you want to draw because you like it. Because when you start doing your art for other people, that's when you start to lose interest in your own work, and then it doesn't become as authentic to who you are as an artist. So I know that I've been told a lot by my one friend of like, why don't I draw heavyset people? And I have one character that's heavyset, but apparently that didn't count. And I remember thinking like, why does it matter to him? Like, why did it matter that I haven't drawn heavyset people? And I think it could be one of two things. One, because selfishly, he might want to see me draw something besides what I normally draw. And he's using that as the excuse of, well, I want you to broaden your
your variety in your characters. But usually when I hear people say that, it's because they don't like this kind of a character and they want to see something more that they like. Or it could be coming from a genuine place of you need to explore your other subject matters because you're limiting yourself. And if it's coming from a place of honesty like that, then I think maybe just try it out. Like just how I was forced to try drawing old people in high school, you'll be surprised by what you might learn. But it needs to be because you want to. It can't be because you're trying to please someone else.
Knowledge bomb.
What? Oh, sorry. That was kind of a rant.
No, I completely agree with all of that. Where I actually had a teacher in high school who did the same thing, where she was like, "You're just drawing chicks with big boobs," and I was like, "That's because, you know, I like drawing this stuff," and apparently it was a problem. But I was like, I'm just gonna keep drawing the way that I want to draw. But later on, when I was in college, and you're taking figure drawing classes, you get models of every type, so you learn a lot by doing those different types of body sizes and stuff. So use it as a learning tool. But like Tim said, don't cater to what other people want.
And I guess a quick side note on that. Usually when I drew stuff, kind of like how Joe drew big-breasted women, a lot of my characters looked like Justin Bieber. It was made fun of a lot for that. But since I grew up with Final Fantasy and I always enjoyed fashion, I always was intrigued by the look of something that's more gender neutral. So a lot of my girls might be more tough and a lot of my boys might be seen more sensitive. But I like that. And I used to get picked on a lot for just carrying that weight of that subject matter and the aesthetic of them. And it wasn't until I didn't listen to them and I kept drawing it over and over that I instead found people that did appreciate it. Because with art, the goal shouldn't be to appease everyone. It should be first to appease yourself, and then second to hopefully find another person out there that not only recognizes the significance of it, but like can really resonate with it and feel they can attach themselves to it. Like they feel like another person out there understands them as a person, even though they don't meet. Just through that piece of art, do they feel connected to another human being? And that's why I'm so adamant about make sure you draw art for yourself. You do art for yourself first, not for others.
Speaking of which, Jess says, Tim, have you noticed your characters have a certain baby doll look? For you and Joe, how do you guys develop your own art styles? I've been trying to find a style that I'm comfortable with, but I've been struggling to find one that I like.
Baby doll. You know what's funny is I remember talking to Joe like 6 months ago and talking to him about how I'm trying to find my style. And I'm pretty sure you said something along the lines of, Tim, I can recognize your style. Or something along the lines of, he noticed that I had it and I still didn't even notice it. But it took someone else telling me that I was able to see, oh, you know what? I can kind of see that when I draw noses in a specific way. I draw eyes in a very specific way. And it kind of happens naturally. Like you don't notice the style happening. It just happens. I don't want to keep overusing the word organically, but I feel like it's so important as an artist to grow organically and not to force it. Because when you force it, sometimes you produce things that either you're not happy or not authentic to who you are as an artist. And it will develop over time. And I know it sucks hearing that, being like, oh, well, you just got to give it time and your style will develop. But it's so, so true. And the thing you can do is start drawing things that you like. So if there's an artist that you like, what about them do you like? Do you like the way that they use color? Do you like their subject matter? And maybe you replicate some of that. And then look at another artist. What do you like about their work? And then you do that over and over again. And then it becomes to the point of what happens in your life. And then it'll be like, oh, I really liked, like something happened to me where I was inspired. And then I'm going to Frankenstein all the inspirations and artists that have brought me to where I am right now. And then I'll create something based on that. And that's when your own style kind of develops. So it does take time, and it's one of those things where you can't really force it.
Yeah, when they said I've been trying to find style that I'm comfortable with, but I have been struggling to find one that I like. I think that's a good thing because, well, one, that could be you might be confusing style with what's the terminology I'm looking for, like proper like
Accuracy?
yeah, so like hitting what your marks as far as proportions or something like that. And but like Tim just said, I feel like it also becomes a comfort thing too, because I look at comic books in, you know, like Scott Pilgrim, where it's super cartoony. It's not beautifully rendered out by any means necessary, and uh, I'm sure when he started working on that stuff, it was kind of crazy. Or like even Invader Zim and stuff like that, where everything just doesn't like but it's still recognized and it's still considered an art style by many, and it's loved by many. So I'm wondering uh if you're uncomfortable with it, is it a good thing because then you're still learning? Because
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
we oftentimes talk about being comfortable with what you're working on, and sometimes that's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And I think like the idea that as much as I do encourage practicing realism and at least studying it to some degree, and then applying that to how whatever style you want to do. So realism isn't the end goal. And I think artists need to hear that. Realism is not the end goal. But like even animators, if you see them do like life drawing sketches, they're actually really good. And it's because they're able to pull or that knowledge that they gain from doing those life studies or from understanding anatomy and realism, they're able to, I don't want to say adapt it into their style of animation. And I think that that's awesome. And I think if you're struggling with it right now, it's probably because you're not at the skill level that you want to be at. And that is admittedly really frustrating. And I think, Joe, if you want to talk about how you have to push through it.
Yeah, one thing that I want to say though is I don't want to confuse people with, because you said like the end goal isn't realism, but they still study from real life. I don't want people to be confused with the idea of like don't study realism,
Oh yeah.
because especially as an animator, like you need to understand how things work in the real life, and they study from those things. What was your question, or for me?
Oh, that like
Oh, you
finding
said
your style. Oops. Yeah, I noticed that. Camera, seriously? Hold on. About talking about how you can't force a style to happen. You have to just work with not where you're at, but like keep pushing through and then do little shifts and changes. Like kind of how you decided you're gonna go more toward like an animated look rather than a realistic look.
Yeah, so the thing that I really want to learn how to render, like that's one thing that I just want to know how to do. And I can render things if I look at it. So like I can photocopy things pretty easily, because that's the way I've been drawing all of my life. But now I want to be able to replicate that in 3D space and just draw things from whatever. So the way that I'm approaching it is breaking it down in simplified forms, which is what like this anime that I'm going for, this look, that's what it's doing for me, is that it's breaking things down into a simplified form, and then if I want to push it further later on, I will be able to do so.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes a long time.
You know what? I'm giving her white hair.
I know we talk about it taking a long, like we're like being patient, and like art takes a long time to get. It can take a lifetime, and I think that's one thing that kind of scares me a little bit, is like I don't want to be 70 by the time I learn all of it. You know?
I don't think you will be.
I hope not. Jay Donovan says, if you're making her such a tough girl, make the headband something ridiculously cute. Contrast is cool.
All right. All right. I got you. I got you.
Jill says, I really like the way you draw eyes. You can immediately see it if it's a guy or a girl. What's the difference between guy and girl eyes?
That's interesting. I usually get told they can't tell if my character is a guy or a girl based on the eyes. Usually, the things that I talk about with eyes is the way that you add the dark shading around the eyes can really make it look feminine very quickly. So like with this, even though she doesn't even have eyelashes right now, it still reads as a little bit more feminine just because it looks like what we're used to with the eyeliner and eyeshadow, where it's heavier and that contrast against the cornea of the eye, the white part of the eye. It gives the look of something feminine or something that was intentional to be that dark. Now, it's not to say that guys can't have that look too. You see it a lot as well. It's more typically related to it being feminine. But with females, the other thing is I try to keep the eyes more round. And now, mind you, I do like to blur the lines a bit. But with females, I do tend to keep it a tad more round. And then the eyebrows, I'll push up a little bit more. So if this was a male character, I would probably thicken the eyebrow and push it down further and make this a little more squared off. So that would be just a little way of making it more feminine or more masculine.
Joseph D asks, how long have you been drawing?
As far as I can remember, I think seriously drawing since I was in even when I was in grade school, I was actually the kid that got in trouble for drawing on their homework. So at one point, the teacher I was in 5th grade and I wasn't allowed to have a pencil during class. And I would just have to sit there and listen. So I've always been sketching, but I don't think I took it seriously until high school. And then college is when I took more digital art seriously and trying to transition from traditional to digital. But as far as I can remember, I've been drawing. But doing this kind of a look of drawing, I would say like the last 2 to 3 years. Wonder what kind of bear should I make this in here?
Wide eyes and big smile.
No, I mean like a panda bear. I'll do a panda bear.
Hail Metal says, my head is smaller than it should be. Any help? I don't think we can help with that, can we?
Yes.
If this person's head is too small.
You never want to have a big head. So where you're at right now is where you're supposed to be.
I think they mean they draw their heads too small.
No, I know. So when you're drawing your heads, actually no, that's not how I interpreted that. I actually don't want to do it with the 0.2. I'll do it with 0.7. So when you're drawing your proportions of your character, you want to keep everything relative to each other. So by this point, I already have like set, they're not called guide points, like lock points almost, where I know how long each part of or each limb should generally be. Like the belly button would be about the elbow, the end of the crotch would be like the hands, and then like your legs. And you do this enough times where you kind of have a set go-to proportion in your mind that you can just pump out. But when it comes to the head, and I see this a lot, usually the head placement seems to be the biggest problem, where they're too high up or they're too low, and then like you have to adjust the neck and it looks kind of weird. So during the sketch phase, when you're just roughing it out, your head, and this is the way that I was taught, it should equal about 3 heads from the shoulder to shoulder. So you should be able to fit 2 more heads on either side of your shoulder. But I think it's actually more close to like almost a full head, something like that. And then if you notice that your heads are too small, it's probably because you're trying to do the 8 head tall thing, because this throws people off so much. And I would never recommend the 8 head guideline. where then your head is supposed to fit in this box, and then the entire body is supposed to fit in equivalents all the way down. The problem with this is usually they don't explain like where the neck ends and where the shoulders begin, and this throws people off because then they might start drawing a neck that looks relatively in the same position in size to the head, but by the time they get to like the waist, they're only like 5 or 6 down when they should be at the start of the 4. So I think it's better to do like a full sketch first and really try to get everything in proportion rather than working at one area and then working down. And although that was something that I learned in school, because I used to start with the shoulder area and then I would work down and then I would do the head last. But my teacher said you want to avoid focusing too much on one area and then having everything fit that. You want a gestural sketch of the anatomy and proportions first.
Actually, I think I use the 8-head method, and it's because you know how you're drawing the heads like that? I'm not taking into the account of the chin.
I think you might be the first person I've ever met that uses that.
It helps for me, it helps with the elongated proportions of an anime character. That and foreheads I know is usually where the crotch is. So the rest of the foreheads is, so you split the crotch to the ankles. That split in half is the knees.
Yes.
So that's why I use 8. But it changes for like kids who are younger, and then like depending on if it's male or female, stuff like that always changes. But I think the average one that I use is just 8 heads. But it's because anime heads are so big. Like, it's so funny for me if you like take hair off of anime heads and you like look at like the proportion on it, you're like, that is a huge like head. It's like what's her name? Helen Carter.
Wizard or Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. I mean, she naturally has a big head. Oops. Let's see. I'm going to the bottom. Jess, like this is from earlier. It says, "I just got out of government class. How late am I?"
About an hour late.
An hour and 15 minutes late. That's okay though. If you missed the stream, you can always just go back on YouTube and watch it. Ms. Eudora asks, what are your impressions on the schoolism course you took on color?
Schoolism. I was like, what? Like, I haven't gone to school in a while. I got through the first course of it. I haven't gone through anything else though yet. I think it's more of cool for me to see the back house of Tonko House and see how they kind of work on their day to day. And like they go to like local coffee shops. One of the lessons, they went to a coffee shop and he was just sketching the area outside the window and how the light changes and the environment's constantly moving and you have to kind of adjust your drawing based on that. So that's been really cool. I would say I haven't gone far enough into it where I can fully like tell you guys how awesome it is or how worth it might be for you to take on your own. But once I do, then I'll be able to tell you guys more about it.
Pam Fernand says or asks, is there a specific sketchbook brand you prefer? For example, Jaza, like Stillman and Bryn.
No, to be honest, whatever is the cheapest at Hobby Lobby that day. The only thing that matters to me is the paperweight. So on this guy, I mean, this isn't the most pretty drawing on the front, but I really don't care. I'm more concerned about this, which I even have circled from a previous live stream. So this is 90-pound paper. And I'm looking at this, like, no wonder I've gotten through this one so fast. There's only 40 sheets. That makes more sense. But no, the paper to me, the quality for almost every sketchbook I've had seems to be the same. It just, if the paperweight is there, I mean, for the most part, all brands are the same. At that point, then you're just buying into a marketing scheme.
Jonathan Miller says, what is the best way to draw an aerial view of a person? I've been attempting to draw 3/4 from above and I keep running into problems.
So typically, let's see where I can. So not from like straight overhead, or yes, overhead. So like if this was our character, just think of them, and I think it's easier for me to do this kind of stuff because I took so much 3D. That's actually what I graduated college with. So you learn perspective and things that you normally wouldn't see in like figure drawing class. Obviously, you don't see a top-down view of a person that often. So, or if at all. So then when you're in a 3D program, you can move the camera wherever you want. So on this character, I give a lot of credit to the college I went to because I think it taught me how to draw things more in perspective with, and even though there might be some continuity errors, like there's some areas that don't look right, for the most part, it gave me a pretty general gist of how to draw something from in perspective and then to like turn the camera. So like, let's say he had his arms extended. He was bending his knee up or something.
I don't want to cut you off from this drawing, but they said I've been attempting to draw 3/4 view from above. So I'm wondering if they mean like above and 3/4 down. So like 45-degree angle down.
Okay, so then you turn the paper. 35. At that point, I think it actually might be more useful for you if you downloaded one of those free figure models that you can mess with in 3D and then try to get the angle that you're looking for specifically. Because I can tell you how much that helped me in 3D, but to give you a tip that would be like the one-all, do-all for like how to draw something in that perspective, it's not practical unless you can see reference that is exactly the angle that you're looking for. Because if you really want to get it just freehanding, then you have to do a lot of studies and really understand anatomy, perspective, and the difference between like perspective and orthographic view. And just that alone will give you an idea of if it's closer to the camera, then it appears larger. But in orthographic, it won't. And just finding out that difference, I think, would be a good first start. But downloading some kind of a 3D software where you can actually move the model around and get the perspective that you want, I would say would be my biggest advice starting out.
I forget the name of the artist on DeviantArt. He talks about using boxes and cylinders.
Oh yeah, Joe loves the box idea.
To break down forms. Yeah, if you can put a head in a box, you can draw anything. But yeah, that's how I would probably break it down, is thinking of a box 3/4 down and then understanding that the head fits in this box. I'll have to find it and put it on the links for the live stream. Jake Scott says, "Oh shit, lol. Tim dropped the S-bomb, lol."
That's actually probably the first. You'll never hear me curse on the stream ever again.
Technically, we can curse on YouTube, but we want to keep this pretty professional, even, you know.
Plus, I normally don't that often. I was just so enthused talking about my old art teacher.
Right? You were so excited.
Mm-hmm.
Femke asks, when I draw with an example, it looks good, but when I draw without it, it looks bad. Any tips on how to improve this?
You might be using the reference too much where it's not resonating with you. You're not absorbing the proportions or what you're looking at. So you're almost using it as a crutch rather than as a helping guidance or truly as a reference. So I would do like an arm study. If anatomy was your big thing, like do an arm study using reference and then do one without. and then C, and you have to like cover this one, so you're not able to see the one with the reference, and do it without. And then when you lift the veil, you should be able to see, okay, there were muscles that I didn't even nuance to or give any kind of showing to, or the elbow looks a lot different than how I thought it looked. And eventually you should get to the point where when you're using it without reference, you're able to capture a lot of those things that you picked up. But I would still, even at that point, recommend using reference, because you never know if there's something like a vein or a wrinkle or something that you can acknowledge in the reference and then add it to your own piece. All right, so like for the last 10 minutes here, let's try to get through as many questions as we can.
Okay.
Oh, and you know what? I said I was going to do some hair stuff, so I'm going to work on hair while we're answering these questions. And if you have any specifics on hair, you can ask them, but for the most part, I'm just going to do an outline and then shade in the form of shapes. So I usually create hair based on putting them in different shapes. So I'm going to keep shading as we answer the questions here.
This is an awesome question, and I haven't thought about this until they actually said this. Yelena says, one of my friends once told me that my handwriting reminds her of her style. Do you think our handwritings can reflect our styles?
Yes. Over the weekend, someone told me I had really nice handwriting, and they're like, oh, it's probably because you're a good artist. And then my friend that I was sitting behind the booth, he said something along the lines of, yeah, it's all feminine, or something, where I think my handwriting, I was taught how to do cursive by my sister, and she has a very curly, girly handwriting. So I picked that up. So now when I do my cursive, it's very like over the top, elegant. And I definitely think that is reflected in the way that I draw, where it's curvy, and I try to go for decadence and elegance and all that other nonsense. So yes, I totally think handwriting can be reflected in a person's art.
I was actually thinking about that because I never thought about that before, and I was like, I sign, or whenever I write stuff, I write really fast. You know?
Yeah, that fits you. Like your art is very quick.
I am not asks, if you have a certain style choice that makes certain things hard to draw, would you drop that part of your style, or would you find a workaround for that thing you can't seem to do in the style?
I don't think I would ever try to find like a scapegoat. I do think you have to tackle it head on. Like, I'm not comfortable with environments, and the fact that I can acknowledge that is the first step. The second step is doing something about it. So even with, like, if I'm working on a new piece right now and I have to learn how to do like window seals and do fabric that is seen through it, and then the back city drop, the city dropscape, and it's like, I have never done that before. So for me to just jump into it, yeah, I can apply my knowledge and the style that I have to it, but I don't know exactly how it's going to look up. So I have to use reference, and I'm going to have to probably do it a few times to really get the look the way I want it to look. So I would just say that understand that no matter what you do, there's probably going to be certain things that you're going to repeat in your work. Like for me, I usually draw faces, profiles, and heads, and usually a similar age range in my pieces. So then if I'm doing something outside of that, it probably won't be as strong the first pass at it, but if I keep working at it and I push myself to really give it the best look that I can possibly give it, then eventually it'll be kind of like adapted into my style along with the stuff I used to do.
Oh, this is a really good question from Gio. It says, do you guys ever disagree on an artistic standpoint? What do you have, or about what do you have a different point of view? And I want to say we do all the time.
Yeah, I don't want to get this into too much of a discussion, but I think the biggest thing me and Joe disagree with in art is, and I don't know how you feel about it now, but the Patreon debate. And I don't want the art community seeing that as the way to go, the way that certain artists are choosing to kind of create art that is more just porn oriented, and that's how they make money. And I don't want artists to think that like that's the way to make money, is to do things that are pornographic or not safe for work. And the argument then is, well, what if they enjoy it? Like, what if they truly enjoy it? And that's where I think me and Joe do differ on that side. But for the most part, like, we discuss. We're not arguing. We're always discussing. Because
Yeah.
it's good that we have our own opinions, but we're not like, I'm right, you're wrong. It's rather like putting out our opinions and our statements and then almost reflecting on our own ideas based on what Joe is saying. And I'll look at, okay, I'll try to understand more of why he thinks that way.
Yeah, I was gonna say we never really come to the point where we're like yelling at each other.
Yeah,
Where we're like you're wrong. It's like, no, that's what Tim's opinion is, and I respect his opinion. I'm not gonna go around and be like, he's so incorrect about this and that. Da da da. It's like, no, that's just what Tim thinks about it, and that's what I think about it. And I think it's a mutual respect for our standpoints, and yeah, I mean, we'll disagree on things, but that doesn't mean that I think getting upset would be really dumb.
Yeah, because even though I would say I'm very passionate about a lot of my opinions, I would never try to make Joe feel inferior or like that his point is wrong just because I feel so strongly about mine.
Yeah. Kanesha says, because I was watching your stream, I forgot my food in the oven. Burning down hot.
I can't say that I haven't, or I've definitely done that before. I think me and Joe both have the problem of forgetting to eat if we're like really working on a piece. Like last night, I don't think I ate after 8 p.m. and I was up till 3:30. I just kind of went to bed in this morning. I was like, oh my God, I'm starving.
I have a bad habit of leaving the oven on or the oven top. The burners on. Yeah, I leave those on every once in a while.
It's balanced by my constantly forgetting to eat the other half of the banana.
Yeah.
It's like finding it on the table. Like, Tim.
No, the best was when it was in the bathroom, on the bathroom sink, and I wake up in the morning and there's that banana just sitting there.
I was like, well, I started eating it before I took the shower, and then after I kind of forgot.
Jake Scott asks Tim, would you ever go back to school?
Yeah. Actually, we have 2 new roommates moving in this month, actually next Monday and the month after. And we were thinking of either taking a clay sculpting class at a local college or even just going to do life studies every now and then. Because even though I think art school in general is a bit too expensive for the quality of the education that you often receive, where I really think that you can get a really good education just online, just on watching YouTube tutorials. And I still think there is something about going live to do a life drawing session that I don't think has been replicated digitally. I know there's sites that have those like timed life drawing, but you need to be in the presence. You need to be there and be in the same lighting. And I think that you can't replicate digitally. So I think, yeah, there's things that I would go back to school for. And I think life drawing would be one of them, or the sculpting, or I was even thinking eventually I would want to go back to learn another language so that if I traveled, I could speak that language and feel a little more comfortable rather than just being like, do you speak English? Because I don't want to be that guy. Oh, shoot. This looks kind of like a young red. I'm like shaving the sides off. I think that was instinctual. I'm going to add the hair back on.
We hit 3:30. There are still a lot of really good questions.
Let's extend this one a little longer.
Okay.
I'm feeling this right now.
Stella asks, how many times and or hours do you draw every day? What particularly and more generally do you prefer to draw?
Actually, it's funny with CG Cookie, I actually don't draw that much. So like even doing the color course, I haven't really drawn anything for it. So my day job, I don't draw a lot, but as soon as the 6 o'clock rolls around, usually I'll go get food and then I'll draw. If I have nothing else to do that night, I'll usually draw until I go to bed, which might be like usually around 2 a.m. So minimum, usually around 4 to 6 hours a day I draw, and that could be digital or pencil. But what do you prefer to draw? Oh, I think it's important for everyone to have a personal project to work on. So I try to work on my personal project, but every now and then I'll just like draw with friends, and sometimes it's good just to draw something that's not on a specific like to-do list, because then it allows yourself more freedom to maybe explore options that you haven't explored before. Even like with this, even though post-apocalyptic is something that I would say is in my general realm of interest, like I had no plans going into this, so I'm able to just kind of do whatever, and it's been really enjoyable. Really quick, on the edge of her coat here, I'm going to quickly do an edging, and then I'm going to do a zipper line. And I want you guys to know, like, if you want this amount of detail in it, you can't rush this kind of stuff, because you want the line to feel pretty exact in terms of how far away it is from the first line. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with like the inner lining at all, if you look at any jacket or any coat, or really fashion in general, the more little details that you can add to the edges of fabric, the more that it reads as a realistic fabric. And even like with this, let's say we'll add a button here. Most of the time, it might work with just a button, but I like to add more than just a button. So then I'll add like a indent as if it was buttoned from a fabric underneath or something. Then I always shade around, give some indentation as if the button's been pushed in. Sometimes the button will just lie flat on it, but it kind of varies. So then if I did it again, then we're bringing into the idea of repetition. And this is another thing that I think younger artists don't include in their pieces just because they don't know how important the idea of repetition can be. And it gives a deeper sense of realism by doing very little. All you have to do is just repeat what you're drawing down. And you can see how already it gives more life to the idea that this is a piece of, there's like a coat or a jacket of some kind. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
Jess asks, would an art course from community college education benefit me as an artist in the future?
I always try to look at anything as a learning experience. So even if you feel afterwards like it wasn't the greatest quality of education, try to pick out something from it. So even if like you're given an assignment, give it the best possible attempt that you can give to it. And I think it's the artists that go to the best of their ability on anything they do, even if it's something that doesn't interest them. Those are the ones that usually will succeed, because eventually they'll get projects that they do enjoy working on, and they already have that hard working ethic mindset of, I'm going to give it my all. So then when they give it their all on something they do enjoy, I mean, that's when you get to see really cool results. Okay, now the zipper line. I'm going to really zoom in here. I can't exactly see what I'm drawing, so it might be a little off. But things like a zipper line, it's just boxes that you go in and out. And pretty much, I really can't see what I'm doing. Hold on. Does that look right? Okay, yeah, that looks right. So, this is really weird drawing the zipper line and explaining how to do it when I can't even see it. Hold on, I'm going to move my head. Okay, so to get a zipper line, people always tell me like how detailed and intricate that you added a zipper line, but really it's like taking an extra minute just to draw this little pattern all the way down the edge of a seam. So in reality, they might be complementing your detail or your attention to detail, but really they're complementing your patience and your dedication to drawing things that aren't normally drawn. So in your next piece, I actually challenge all of you to draw some kind of a zipper line and actually do the pattern all the way down. And that's how, when you zoom out, it's like there's a hint and there's a subtlety to it, but it really does add an extra layer of realism and detail that wasn't there before. But look how fast I was able to do that pattern, but it makes it seem so much more intricate, but it really isn't. So that's how you can trick people sometimes. I don't want to say trick. I think that's a poor word use. I think that's how you can show your patience and dedication in your work, just through something so simple as a a pattern that's repeated down a seam line. All right, let's try to get like 3 more good ones.
Oh, there's a couple people asking about like finding artists for like a community and stuff. Go to our forums, which is what CG communities. I always get it confused because I was confused. Yeah, community.cgcookie.com and post up a sketchbook. I just started a bunch of sketchbooks up for everybody. Or I started mine, and then people are following suit. People usually throw in their 2 cents, and it's good to see your progress over time. So definitely go check out the forums, guys. Usually it's an active community, and I know we have a Facebook group too, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Cookies and Cocoa group. Stella asks, would you one day make a stream where you two are drawing on the same subject? It could be very interesting. We could see your different styles and point of view.
Yeah, that's definitely something doable.
Sydney Kruger asks, when you draw a character, do you think of the character's expression or mood? Can you or mood can you show through in the hands just as much as the face?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think in the way that you pose them can present an attitude that might not be there in the face. And actually that contrast might bring more interest to your piece. So I would even try doing that.
Dave T says, I know that by looking at someone else's art, which you think that is amazing, you have to get encouraged and motivated. But whenever I see one, it brings me down and hits me with the idea to stop drawing. What should I do?
I'm telling you guys, like when you see really awesome, crazy good art, I want you to see that as an inspiration. And it's going to take some time to see it that way. But it should be that way because then it's like they just gave you another reference that you can add to your visual library that you can pull on later. So like the more crazy good art that you have in your library, the more that you'll have to pull from when you're doing your own work later on. So sometimes it's discouraging because you're seeing a skill level that you want to be at currently, but you're not. And I think just the gap that's there, and it's the video that I always tell people to watch. I think it's called The Gap, but it's the idea that you have to bridge that gap. So where you are and where you want to be, there's that separation, and it's scary because it's a far distance away. But to get there, you have to build it one step at a time, and eventually, if you take it one step at a time, you'll make it to the other side. You'll bridge that gap. But then when you get to the other side, there will be another area that you want to get good at or you want to achieve to be. And then once again, you're bridging the gap again. So that's why with art, you're constantly evolving. There's no like end game. There's no one area that you want to, or like a skill level of quality that you want to hit, and then you'll be like, well, I'm done. Like I'll never achieve higher than this. And I think that's why it's disappointing sometimes to see artists that kind of settle into their current skill level. They don't really push themselves, and the viewers see it too. And if you recognize that within yourself, with your own art, how you might have settled into your current skill level and you're not pushing yourself to be better, that's when you need to kind of get back on the horse of, okay, I need to mix it up a bit. I need to do something that I've never done before, maybe a technique or a subject matter. But to get motivated and encouraged, you have to truly believe me when I tell you that art is a long game. It's not a short game. It's kind of like the idea of that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So you have to understand that your destination is very, 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 very far away, and that you have to take it one step at a time. And on the way, yeah, you might get discouraged, there might be struggle, but just know it's all part of the process, part of the journey of becoming an artist. I'm going to give her some freckles while we end this off.
Really fast. I have such a tough time saying this name. Aloriel? How soft/hard are your mechanical pencils?
This one is, I'm actually not sure. Let me check. It says HB on this pencil, but I don't know if that's actually accurate. Let me check my pick. You know what? I would have to, I don't know where my lead containers are at the moment, but I would have to check that. But usually I can actually tell the difference when I'm working. So like this one's a very soft lead, whereas my yellow one, it's a very hard lead. So as soon as I lay it on, it just makes things darker. So I think it takes some adjusting, some time getting used to as well. But the sooner you become kind of acquainted with the difference between the different leads and which one's more comfortable for you, I think the easier it is to work traditional. But sometimes a lot of people just don't know. Like I didn't know for the longest time what the difference between B and H meant or all that stuff. And it just took like one day of like going to the art store and experimenting with the pencils that they have on display to really understand, oh, okay, so this one's just darker, it lays in darker. And this one's softer, so when you lay it down, it's easier for it to create the effect on the paper.
I think the 0.2 is an HB.
Is it?
So it's just like a neutral. I'd have to look it up though. Oh, that's the one thing I need to link is the pencils. Okay. Go through and look at what you.
All right. Let's see here. I'll move this to the screen. You use short lines when you do traditional, but you use fluent lines when you do digital. Any reasons why you prefer doing these shorter lines when doing traditional? So I actually don't know if I should be even teaching this, but when I work, I actually plant my wrist kind of pretty much on the paper and I only move my fingers. So I work in very, very small strokes, which is actually not the way that people recommend it. You're supposed to keep your elbow loose because then you get more fluid lines. I think I'm just so used to doing really tight pockets of detailing that I need like a set position. So I like put weight on and then like I'll do minor little shading. But when it comes to digital, since I'm working on a larger scale, I'm usually not, if I'm doing something like detailing on like this, if I was doing an eye, more than likely I would zoom in Photoshop so I can keep it bigger and more loose. When I'm working on paper and I really want to get the intricacies of detail in certain areas, then I really need to work pretty much with my wrist. But you also have to be careful because that can lead to what's that called? Not arthritis. Shoot, I can't think of what it's called right now.
Are you talking about arthritis?
No, it's the wrist joint problem. Purple Kekleon had the carpal tunnel.
Oh, yeah.
So I know that that can lead to it a little faster. So you got to be careful. But I think that's why I do that traditional versus digital. Oops, that's right. I'm looking through the questions. And I'll move this up so you can see what we drew today. I'll probably work on this a bit more after and post it. I'm curious, who does the laundry and dishes in your house? 2 guys in one house must be messy. We actually have a third roommate, Corinna. That's Joe's girlfriend, and she's pretty clean. But I'm actually usually the one that advocates for no dishes in the sink and keeping our kitchen more clean. I think because we're older, we have that mindset where when we were in college, and yeah, I was living with a bunch of guys, it was definitely a mess. Oh, a bunch of people are saying carpal tunnel. Thank you, guys, for fixing my brain fart there. Digital is asking, when I draw eyebrows, I automatically fill them in. I've noticed you always leave them blank. What's your reasoning? To be honest, I don't really have a reasoning. I've always liked the aesthetic of the white eyebrows and the contrast I can create around it. So it's one of those things where I think it just kind of happened just based on my aesthetic preference, but it's not to say it's right or wrong. It's just I think part of the style. Oh, someone just said bird skull earring really quick. Oh, that would have been super dope. I should have drawn this earlier. I'll make that look more badass later. Do you usually start your drawing from imagining the whole person, or just start drawing and add new things that come to your head? Usually it's just for things that come to my head, which I actually don't, that's not my preferred way of thinking. I think it sometimes can lead to a lot of choices on the characters I draw to it not really making sense or it feeling forced. So usually I like to I go in with a better sense of what I want. Like this one, like that jacket combo that we got going on is very sporadic, and I don't know why there's a shoulder pad on this side and there's nothing on this side, and like, is this hinting at another fold of the fabric? So sometimes if it's aesthetically pleasing, that doesn't make it accurate. So just something to kind of keep in mind as you do your own character and stuff. What are good papers for pencil drawings? Thicker paper. In my opinion, thicker paper is the way to go. I think too thin, and it's hard to not only shade, but smudging can be a big problem. And also, when you're carrying your sketchbook and going from place to place, I think it's easier for the paper to rub on itself, which can also create smudging on your pieces. Can you talk about line variation? How do you know where to put the thin and thick lines? And how important is suggestive drawing, implying there's something instead of drawing it completely? I love the idea of implying that there is something there. So like even with this, I stopped the zipper line here, but the viewer, if I drew this all the way down, would assume and imply that the zipper would go all the way down. So that's why you can leave some areas blank in your pieces, and the viewer will be able to fill in the gaps with their imagination. In terms of line variation, I actually don't have the greatest amount of line variation. I keep it very thin. I try to keep it more tight, but usually when you're working thicker and you have like a lot of line variations, you want to be very conscious of where you're placing your thick lines and where you're placing your thin lines. Because thick can grab a lot of attention, and I can't really do that with a pencil, but with a marker it would be really easy. Like if you keep your lines really thick around the eye, and then the other one, if you keep it really thin, there's definitely a different aesthetic that you get with both. So you got to be conscious of that, and honestly study from reference of someone that you would consider that works with line weight very, very well, and study like how do they do the knees and how do they do joints and areas that are usually very influenced by the way that they draw the line weighting in those areas. Okay, so then yes, the contest is happening right now at CG Cookie. Go to the community post at community.cgcookie.com, and the contest will probably be one of the top ones. So check that out if you want to enter, win some Amazon cash and obvious recognition from the community. Someone said, and I think this might be the one I end on the idea of, Tim, you should have variety to your characters that allows for more personality to be expressed. And I agree and disagree with that, because I think a true character should not be summed up in the way that they look and what they're wearing. I think the true character will come out, and usually this depends on, like, if it's a book, it's easier to read it, but with like a movie or game, you play and you see how they interact with other people. But through an illustration, I think that if you're only judging them based on how they dress or their age or what they look like, then you're only judging them on a surface level, which kind of goes into how we judge people in real life, which is not how we should be judging people. We should get to know them and who they are. And I think sometimes characters get put into that realm of, you have to recognize who they are and their personality and their life story just on one look at them, where I think when you look at them, it should hint at that. There should be like subtleties that the character has on them that tells a story, but it's not like all just wearing it on their sleeve. What is the basic shading that makes the nose look real? So this is an all right nose. So basically what I try to do is keep it heavier on the bottom, and then sometimes, as you can see here, I'll add like a little bit of a bounce light that comes above the nostril, but the nostril I usually keep dark, but I don't just make the nostril a dark circle, because I try to give the impression that you can see the skin going under and forming the whole of the nostril. But usually the bottom of the nose I usually keep darker, and then the point of the nose is usually where a highlight will go. So I keep that lighter. Oh man, there are so many. Have you ever drawn a drawing with black paper with a white pencil? Yes. And I think the best one is working on mid-tone paper. So like a gray or a brown that's more on a mid-range, and then using white and your graphite pencils to create your image. I think that was one of the cool things for learning where to place highlights. Okay, we'll end up on this one. Tim and Joe, what's your spirit animal? Go, Joe.
Oh man, that's a tough question. It's actually pretty simple. Mine's a lion, but that's because I was born in August, so my zodiac sign is a Leo.
I like to joke that mine's like a manatee or a bulldog or something, or like a pig. But if I was serious, I think it would be some kind of a bird or a rabbit, just because those are the things I generally draw in my work, and I think that's coming from like a subconscious.
I'm trying to think of like the type of person whose spirit animal would be a manatee.
I mean, I do feel pretty connected to the manatee lifestyle, but I think people think I'm joking when I say that.
Oh no, sorry. I thought stingray for some reason.
Oh no.
I was like, my brain went to stingray. I was like, what type of, is it like a floaty personality when you think of like a stingray? And then I was like, oh no, manatee, which is like the sea cow.
Yep. And then in Australia, they're called dugongs.
Dugong.
All right, so I think that's where we're going to end it off. Oops. And there are a lot of questions. I was just scrolling for quite a while. If you didn't notice, I took my pajamas half off because I was getting so hot in here. Okay, so thank you guys for coming to this live stream. We do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. We usually post the topic about an hour and a half beforehand. And right now we have a contest going on, so check that out if you're interested in entering. It's most popular big character. And then the color course will be out, or at least understanding color, so the first part of the color course. So all the things that we've been doing is for the first part of color, because that's how complex color can be, and we're trying to break it down to in the best possible way for hopefully you guys to understand it. And that will be out on the 7th of September. So I hope you guys look forward to that, because I know we've been working hard to create it, and hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Any last word, Joe?
What I was going to say is do your sketchbooks, guys. Go on the community and make a sketchbook and post every day, because I'm interested in seeing your progress over time, and I'm sure that you will be too in the next couple of like years, maybe.
Agreed. Oh, have you been able to hear anything I said? Microphone was way over there. All right. Anyways, thanks guys again for coming, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Do we do like a YouTube